Hey, you're about to listen to an older episode of the Volunteer Youth Worker podcast. This is a podcast that Sid Coop, Jason Ballard, and myself, Jeremy McDonald, started back in 2018 to answer the practical questions that you're asking in your youth ministry. But lots has changed since we started it in 2018. We've changed the name. We're doing new and different events and lots of other things. The thing that hasn't changed, though, is the content you're about to listen to, we think is still really valuable. But if you notice that some of the things we're talking about are obviously a little bit older, that is okay. You can always head to youthworker.community to stay up to date with what's happening currently right now here in 2024, and you can track along with us there. We'd love to see you. But enjoy this episode. Episode 122 of the Youth Ministry Team Podcast. Welcome back. And if this is your first time, welcome. We are so glad that you are here, tuning in, hopefully taking some steps to learn a little bit more about our craft of youth ministry, investing into the faith of the next generation. And we truly believe around here that you're making an eternal difference as you volunteer wherever you are serving in the lives of teenagers. Man, it is such an incredible thing that you get to do to invest into their spiritual journey. So we're grateful for that. A couple things before we jump into today's conversation. First off, especially if you're listening to this live and in the midst of kind of our summertime, we've got an event coming up very shortly called the Youth Ministry Online Summit. It's an incredible event, and I don't say that because it is our event. I say it because we've got a great number of partners. We're working with Change Conference, with our friends over at Alpha, and we're bringing you some phenomenal resources from some great communicators around our North America and internationally, actually. We got Rachel coming in from the UK, just a brilliant communicator. And so all of the information you need is in the show notes. And even after the fact, you can access some on-demand resources there. So follow those links. And it is a two-part event. There's a part one, which is coming up August 11th, designed around the staff of youth ministries and thinking about strategically planning out our ministry for the fall. And then in the kickoff area, time of the year, September 11th, we've got a full amount of training specifically for your volunteer team. So if you are a volunteer, it's designed specifically for you, and all sorts of great resources there that will be on demand, accessible starting September the 11th. But all of the details are at the link in the show notes. So make sure you check out that, because we would love to have you around at the Youth Ministry Online Summit. Well, let's jump into today's conversation that Sid and I got to have with our friend Jason Ballard.
Welcome to the Youth Ministry Team Podcast. Youth ministries rise and fall on the team of volunteers. So this podcast is for the whole team. Join the conversation as we tackle the practical questions you're asking so you can be encouraged and equipped as you head into your role in your youth ministry this week.
Ladies and gentlemen, today on the Youth Ministry Team Podcast, Sid and I are grateful for a special guest that is special for all sorts of reasons. Sid, can you introduce who is coming on right now?
Oh, come on. You know what? This is just like a throwback day for us. Jason Ballard is with us again. Jason, I'm so thankful that you're taking the time to come and join us. Really, really great.
It's my honor.
Yeah, right. I love it. And just for those of you who maybe haven't followed Jay and what he's been involved in over the last year, you need to. He's involved in a number of different things, but in particular, I think the Canadian Church Leaders Network is so significant, really speaking to a lot of issues from a senior pastor type position, gauging a lot of guests, and continuing to be heavily invested in thinking about passing faith on to the next generation. So Jay, what's the name of the podcast, by the way, Jay, that you guys are doing there that people should be accessing?
It's called the Canadian Church Leaders Podcast. I was surprised that you didn't mention my recent win. I don't know if you guys heard.
I saw something on Instagram.
Yeah, we're doing the church
win,
plant. Yeah, the bocce ball. We're doing the church plant. It's great. That's fine. We're doing the Church Leaders Network, whatever. The big thing going on in my world for the past 18 months, besides the pandemic, is I won the 11th annual bocce tournament for my friend Landry's birthday, 11 years in a row. And I've won before, but just after the year I've had, this one felt extra sweet. And it was uncontested. Sometimes a win comes very contested by this group of guys. It was undeniable. No one could I was a commanding lead. I ended with a 2-pointer where you connect with the white ball and then you settle in beside it. And so, but yeah, those are the big things in my world right now.
Yeah. Jay, I feel like you might be the Tom Brady of the bocce world.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to make that comparison myself.
Yeah.
But I've heard people making similar comparisons.
Yeah.
This is an audio podcast, so people won't realize, but the shirt that you're wearing today, is this a celebration shirt? Is this what you won?
No, this is
Just describe it for the listeners, because I think this is important for them to...
It's an Arctic scene. There's eagles, there's moons, there's polar bears.
I think there's just one moon.
Yeah, I only see one moon. I see a couple of birds flying across the moon, bro.
But the bald eagle's flying. It's very majestic, very lone wolf.
Yeah.
Well, here's what's going on, guys, is I've only got a few t-shirts that make it through the season. And this is one of the ones that I just like to pull out just in the summer months. And so a friend bought this to me as a joke about 4 years ago, and I love it.
And you keep loving it. Well, hey, Jared, just for your information as well, Jay and I are going for, I was in Vancouver this past weekend. So we're doing a walk, just having a little conversation. And we both looked down at the same time and realizing that we're both wearing, and AJ Crocker, if you're not, you should be listening to this, but we were both wearing the exact same Youthquake t-shirt that we were given over this past
It wasn't
year.
even a Youthquake shirt. It was a Briarcrest t-shirt.
Yeah.
So we were repping it. So I think, you know how on the intake forms, you say like, how did you hear about this? A friend. So I just hope it says like a friend online advertisement running into Jason and Sid Coop in White Rock. And they're both wearing the same tee, because I'm sure there'll be a big admission spike. But it wasn't right away. It was probably 40 minutes into our walk. Anyways.
Yeah.
What are we here to talk about?
That's nice, you guys. That's really nice.
Yeah.
I just appreciate that. Okay, today, and part of the reason why I'm really excited, Jay, that you're here to chat about this is we're thinking about ministry in this next season. And as the pandemic ends, there is just so many mixed emotions as we shift into the next thing. And we're shifting. We know that there's some changes. There's like talk of like return to normal, or what is normal, new normal, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's worthwhile pausing for a minute and just reflecting a bit. And I know you've done this really well. You've actually taught me, just even a simple practice to be able to process the season, not even specifically COVID, but obviously we should be thoughtful about the season we've just come through. And we've actually had listeners write in and just kind of wonder, hey, what should I be, as things shift into this new day, like how can I not lose what I've gained over the last season, but how can I make sure to go back? So I just would love for you to frame it for our youth workers. We got volunteers listening, people on the front lines of youth ministry. How can they think thoughtfully about ministry in this next season?
So I'm a forward-looking guy. Like I'm always just looking forward. So I struggle a lot with reflecting back. And so it's very likely for me that I could just, in Vancouver right now, as we're recording, we're just on the precipice of a big shift in restrictions. So, there's things are opening up. And so I'm like full steam ahead, thinking about life post-pandemic, organizing around that. If I'm not careful, and this isn't just the pandemic, with anything in my life, like I can just go full steam ahead. So a number of years ago, I started an annual rhythm with two friends, one who's runs a marketing agency and another who runs a recovery center for addicts. And we'd go away for 2 or 3 days and we try to look back at the year thoughtfully and then look ahead with intention. And it's about to give time to the Lord and to intentionally order your life. And because if you're not careful, you get things out of order. And so like family and faith can kind of find themselves below vocation. And I needed a time every year where I just reprioritize, reorder. And in the middle of our first time away, we did this exercise, and I don't know where we got it from. I'm sure we didn't come up with it. It probably came from like a Michael Hyatt book called Your Best Year Ever or something like that. And the exercise was very simple. One question, maybe it's two. What are you going to take with you from the year past? What are you going to leave behind? So, we were in 2018 and we were asking the question the first time, what am I taking with me from 2018 and what am I into 2019 and what am I leaving behind? Let me just give you a quick example. If I was to do it right now, this year, I implemented dates with my daughters. When I look at, and in September, I'll do this retreat again, and I look at 2022, I'm going to say, I'm taking with me dates with my daughters into 2022. And then maybe there's something in my life that has been less helpful. It doesn't have to be bad, but it can just be, sometimes it's bad. Like it could be a habit. I'm going to leave behind scrolling my phone past 11 p.m. I'm going to leave it behind. I'm leaving that in the year past. And so then And you can do it for anything. You could do it as when you transition jobs. You could do it at the end of a year. You could do it on a birthday. You could do it even professionally with your staff. As things change, you could ask, or in the case of youth ministry as a volunteer team, hey, what are we bringing forward? What are we leaving behind? And it's similar to a question like what's working, what's not, but it's different. There's something about taking something with you and like saying, I'm not letting go of this gift. And then having the power to it can be even a mindset. Like you can say, I'm leaving behind that negative self-talk, but I'm taking with me those weekly phone calls with a friend that built me up. Could be anything like that. So how do we apply that to thinking about youth ministry post-pandemic? And I think more than we want to answer that for you today, we want to give you that question. And I think all of us need to ask the question, what are we going to take with us? And so I'll give you an example from my church context. I'm just thinking about this right now. And then you guys can jump in, Sid and Jer, and maybe reflect on, as you reflect on this year, and then we can kind of, I don't know, you guys can take it where you want. But let me give you an example. In COVID, our church wasn't able to meet in person. So we had to heavily prioritize investing in our small group leaders as a means by which to pastor our congregation. We just didn't have the luxury of lobbies and things like that. And if we're not careful, we could just move forward and naturally that would get deprioritized as services open up and all of those things. So what I'm saying is, as a church organization, we are taking with us post-pandemic highly prioritizing engagement with our small group leaders. We're not leaving that behind. We're grabbing that as a gift and we're going to hold on to it real tight in the next stage. And then you could do the same thing. What are we leaving behind? We could say as a church, we're leaving behind. Oh, this is an interesting question. What am I leaving behind? What might have been a part of the pandemic that we're leaving behind? We're not leaving behind online work. We're taking that with us. We want to take that forward. We're going to even keep doing alphas online. I'll have to think about what we're leaving behind. You got to leave something behind. Maybe there's some bad habits that built over time. Maybe there is. Anyways, what do you guys think?
Well, first of all, I think, Jay, just even when you're talking about it, I think this is a really great mindset that we should be leaning into for a couple of reasons. I think some of us have lived dreaming about leaving, the pandemic behind, but actually God has been at work and doing really good things and has created space for us to be more aware of him and willing to lean into areas that we wouldn't normally have like mental space for, or even a willingness to explore. So I think it's really important when we do this practice is that we're actually acknowledging, oh, God has been at work and there's good things that he's used to shift me and shift the work I'm doing with my kids or whatever, that I want to acknowledge that and lean that. So I think that just that understanding that God's always at work and that's great, and we want to acknowledge that, is really important in the process. It's funny, Jay, when I talk with you, to hear you go, oh, it's hard for me to even think about what I want to leave behind. Because I think that's a beautiful sign that you've always been thinking about, what's our mission? What are we about? How do we continue to move that and express the values that God's called us to express in ways that aren't just for this moment? So I think there's actually something really wonderful about that. But I do like the idea of thinking through bad habits that aren't helpful for the work that we're involved in, that have maybe filled a space that won't be present later, but could keep us from leaning into possible ways if we didn't actually proactively say, hey, I'm gonna move that. Leave that. So, maybe it's something like, so let's think of a volunteer youth worker. Maybe one of the great things you've done is you've been gaming with your kids, once a week or something. And that's been really cool. But actually now there's a space where you could go for a walk with them, or gather them together as a group physically around a bonfire and share stories, or something that could put you in a physical space that could even make the relational experience more significant. But it's been easier to gather online. Like for some of us, we've actually liked the convenience of just saying, hey, I'm going to take this hour. I don't have to drive anywhere. I don't have to gather people. I can hit this and then move back. But don't let convenience be what primarily dictates what you do.
I think
let mission be that, and that
buddy.
might cause you to leave some of those things behind.
I got a question for you guys, because I wonder about a couple of leaders that are listening, volunteers, and they think about things specifically that they want to bring with them or leave behind, but then they realize, oh, I don't necessarily get to dictate these things,
Sure.
or maybe they're realizing they're somebody else has different plans. What would you say to somebody that that's recognizing something that should be different about the future, and they have to kind of bring that along?
So I would say this exercise happens on a couple different levels. And so even if you're not running program, start with your own personal life.
Right on.
How did this year go for you? This 18 months? Like, did you build good habits in your walk with Jesus? And I would say I had both. I went through seasons where I had re-engaged disciplines. Like I started this pattern of just walking with Jesus in the morning. And I probably had a good 6-month run from last March through to past last summer into the fall, like, really strong. And then, and so in one sense, I want to take that with me, walking in the mornings with scripture and with the Lord. But then there was a part where that kind of deteriorated, and for whatever reason, I sort of lost my morning routine. And so I want to leave behind cluttered mornings. And I want to take with me that piece. So there's a personal life thing, but then there's also mindsets. There was a couple mindsets that you can go, hey, I want to take with me that part of me that says, hey, even though the circumstances are bad, I can still bring joy and positivity into whatever space. I want to leave that behind. Or maybe you gave into a mindset that was like, I just need this to be over. I just need this to be over. I want to leave that behind, though. I want to embrace the moment I'm in. So there's personal rhythms, personal mindsets. And then there's like how you work with your students. And so for me, one example, or I would say for me, one idea that comes to mind that in this moment is, let's say this year you lost regular touch with your students. And I totally get that because when you're used to having that weekly rhythm in the room together, and if that wasn't there, so you might say, I'm leaving behind, depending on the program, to connect with students. I'm leaving behind. I'm going to instead take with me this pattern of reaching out to them in between program elements, and so or maybe you actually this year learned the art of connecting with students in inopportune times because you didn't have the program. So, I'm taking with me that habit, and that's not program dependent. So I'd ask the question, what kind of patterns and rhythms can you reflect on from COVID? This is, what am I taking with me? What am I leaving behind that are personal? And then, I think what you're getting at is if there are program elements, that's up for the point leader, but the degree to which you've been invited into that conversation, you might be able to present this exercise and say, do we want to do a round table around it? But I actually think we can get really far just as volunteer youth workers ourselves, asking the questions, what can I learn from the season past? Or what can I take with me from it? What do I leave behind? And there's something about this that is ultimately about ownership. Or no, let me rephrase it. It's about being in the driver's seat of this, because you might accidentally take with you something or accidentally leave something behind. And that can be fine and good. The point of this exercise is to take ownership over this transition.
That's great, you guys. So honestly, I think it's a great exercise. There's going to be lots of people that are going to tackle it in the coming days, weeks. Is there anything that you would say specifically if you were to be presumptuous, hey, let's make sure that we don't miss this in the next season, that you want to speak and say, hey, you should leave this behind in the pandemic, or you should bring, something new? Or are we just leaving it as like, hey, we trust that the exercise will do its work in people's lives?
Well, I would love to hear from people. Like, I don't know what the best channel for that is, but if you could like tag youth worker community online and say, I'm taking with me this, I'm leaving it behind. I would love you. If you tag me on Instagram, I'd love to see that, because I want to learn with you and from you on this project. Like, imagine if, 500 volunteer youth workers across Canada just took time to do an exercise like this. I think it would really move the needle. One thing I don't think people should leave behind is trying to figure out how to put good content in social spaces. So I think don't leave that behind. But one thing you could leave behind is banking on that content to actually move the needle. So I think that both of those things were happening. We moved into the digital space, thumbs up. Believing that the digital space is actually going to disciple people exclusive from relationships, we got to leave that behind. And I doubt very many youth workers did that. But again, you can see how that kind of can nuance in the detail. Hey, I want to take this with me. Let's not give up on the progress we made in the digital space. I think we still need 1,000 more dynamic channels that are providing good content that comes from a Christian worldview in the lives of students. Let's go after that, but let's leave behind betting on that for the work. That's one example that comes to mind.
It's great stuff. Thanks so much for you guys' time today. Thank you, Jay, for jumping on with us. We super appreciate it, and would love to have another chat with you about youth ministry sometime soon. Well, there you have it. Great framework to process this past year. Hope that you do use that, and that can be a helpful tool heading into this next season. Before you go, I want to make sure you knew that we are super grateful for Trinity Western University. They're a partner and friend of this podcast. They help bring this resource to you, and so would love it as you're thinking about, where do I, point students this fall as they're thinking about their next step in their journey, beyond high school. Trinity Western has got to be on your list because they do an incredible job of preparing students vocationally, but also investing in them spiritually. And so do take a look. We got their links in the show notes, and they would love to chat with you as a youth worker if you're trying to figure out how to send off your students well when they are graduating out of high school, perhaps this coming year. All right, we'll see you back another week for the Youth Ministry Team podcast. Come on back, make sure you're subscribed so that you get episodes as soon as they drop into your feed, and we'll see you next time.